Have you been struggling getting out of your IT help desk position? Have you been looking to do more, possibly even in cybersecurity? Meet Jamal Peters. He is a tech professional who not only transitioned from an IT help desk position into a cybersecurity position, but he did it without a certification or a degree. Hear Jamal as he shares his story. But before we get into that, if you like what you hear, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, and even share with others. Now hear JP as he shares his story.
Yeah, my background actually started in the IT field. Just since I was a kid, I always just dabbled with computers, always pulling apart something, some kind of electronic. And as I grew older and stuff, I started to actually venture into the IT space. I held multiple help desk roles, major organizations like State Farm, SiriusXM, and others. And that's where the passion began to cultivate. And I grew deeper in the field, and then I transitioned into cyber.
So JP, how did you get into an IT help desk role without a degree or certification?
Well, for me, my story was actually pretty unique. I actually had nothing on my resume that even said I can even do anything remotely close to IT. And I applied. I just applied, I kept applying, and someone actually reached out to me. It was actually State Farm. I was actually a contractor for State Farm. Well, I applied for that role, and the recruiter called me, not because my resume was impressive, but he wanted to know, why did you apply for this job since you had nothing on your resume that said that you even understood, IT. And I basically told him, I said, hey, I have that historical knowledge because I've done this my whole life. If given the chance, I can go to work and I can do this the right way. And he gave me a chance because he said to me that I reminded him of himself when he first started. He had no degree, no certifications, and he just had the drive and the street smarts, so to speak, on how to do like IT, and he got in that way. So he advocated for me, and that's actually what started my career in IT.
When did you realize that you wanted to transition from IT to cybersecurity?
Well, for me, just with the time in the help desk field, as I was learning the different technical expertise needed to be in the tech industry. Well, I was working for one company one day, and I remember there was a guy, his desk was next to me, but he was never in the office. But he was the one that they relied on for everything. So this was a smaller company, so the security department was a branch off of the IT department where they were underneath the same umbrella, but he did all the cybersecurity things and everyone went to him for everything. And he never came in the office because he could work from pretty much anywhere. And just every time I spoke to him, he had so much knowledge and just so much wisdom to hand down. And I said to myself, man, that's what I want to do, where I don't have to track it into the office every day. I can pretty much work from everywhere, well, just anywhere, and be that valuable asset to a company where I'm not tied to a desk, but I can still bring a lot to the table, and the company relies on me to protect their data. So that actually, just seeing him, and at the time being in a help desk role, seeing where I could be, and especially in the cybersecurity field, because I saw what he did and how he just navigated different types of attacks. I said, that's what I want to do. Taking my technical expertise in IT to the next level and actually preventing, stopping attacks and safeguarding infrastructures for major organizations. So that's what I wanted to do. And that's when I saw that vision for me. Yes, this is something to pursue.
What steps did you take to prepare for a cybersecurity role?
Well, for me personally, I actually still now in the field, and I do not have a single certificate. I also do not have a college degree. I've just been really grinding. I do a lot of studying. I study a lot of Python. Just before breaking into the field, I was studying the CISSP. That's the Certified Information Systems Security Professional. So that's the gold standard of cybersecurity certifications. It's not very deep, but it's very broad, and it covers all the different 8 domains of cybersecurity. I recommend anyone who's breaking into cybersecurity to take that cert, not even take the test, but just study for it, because it gives you a guideline of what you want to get into. Because what you don't want to do is climb a ladder and then realize that your ladder is facing the wrong wall. So just understanding, do you want to get into the technical aspect of cybersecurity? Are you looking to do more compliance stuff, legal stuff? Are you like a pen tester? What do you want to get into? There's so much different things you can get into within the cybersecurity industry, and not everyone is technical. But for me, I would say I have no certs, and I have no degree, but my work speaks for itself, and I've been elevated and promoted because of it. I've always find myself in a room where anyone would say he's not qualified to be here, but I'm here. And well, I'm not saying that this is your avenue. You can take your avenue. Education is important. And I would say I do a lot of studying. I do a lot of training sessions and whatnot. But for me, I didn't go the college route. And the way how things are in my life, in my career, a certificate doesn't validate just what I do for work, because I do it on a day-to-day basis. And like the results are there, and I'm promoted because of it. So
What were the biggest challenges you faced during your transition to a cybersecurity
for
role?
me, I would say the biggest challenge that I face is applying my technical expertise from the IT help desk field with cyber like methodologies. Understanding I know what an IP address is and how IP address works, but how is it abused? I understand different types of computer systems, whether it be Windows, Macs, Linux, whatever, but how does different types of attacks come on different types of systems? Because when there's a Windows hack, so to speak, it's very different than a hack on a Mac or an intrusion on a Linux system. So understanding what those different attack techniques are on those different systems. So basically applying what I had in IT with a cybersecurity spin on it. So it was a great undertaking because there's a lot of different things. Most people who start off in cybersecurity start off as a SOC analyst. That's where I started off. And to be a SOC analyst, you would be on the incident response team. You'd be more of the entry level incident response, where you're handling a lot of the alerts that come in. And if something is a true positive, then you bounce it to an incident responder. So that's where you usually get your feet wet as a SOC analyst in most cases. Some people actually come in as vulnerability management like analysts. There are other analysts in positions, whether it be GRC, whatever. But most people, especially on the technical track, they come in as a SOC analyst. And that is where you come in and get your feet wet. So for me, that transition of understanding how do these attacks work? I understand systems. I understand all these different technical terms. How does this now apply to what I do? Unlike just on a response team and the incident response lifecycle, where you're dealing with things from an attack from the reconnaissance phase all the way up to actions and objectives, going through the cyber kill chain. How do you just navigate that? And it's a different type of mindset you have to have. Yes, you have the like technical expertise, but you also have to have a mindset of, where do I pivot from here? I see the attackers doing this. How do I get from here to here? How do I figure out how they did it? And then once you like remediate the system, do root cause analysis. How did they get in? How did they get in the first place? They're coming in through a USB that was plugged in by the employee. Are they coming in through the network? Did the user just click on a phishing link? How did they get in? So just determining that root cause. So all those different things, I would say, was the biggest challenge for me. And also, too, building a relationship on the cybersecurity side, because I had a ton of friends and professional contacts in the IT field, but not a lot in cyber. So building that in cyber was very key as well, because I would say coming from an IT field into a cybersecurity field for, I would say, a good 6 months, I was just the glorified IT guy in cyber. No one came to me for cyber questions. I was the guy who was helping everyone with their help desk issues, because that's where my expertise lie at the time. So transitioning through that and understanding that, hey, it's a process. Now I'm at the point now where I got promoted multiple times in the cybersecurity industry, and people now rely on me for cybersecurity things and not just where I flourished before, which was IT.
How did networking impact you securing your cybersecurity roles?
Well, that just boils down to a professional relationship, like you mentioned. Because I maintained those relationships, I was able to easily, move on to a different company. Now, of course, I was contracting in these companies, so when the contract ended, I had to move on. However, I had those professional things built where I'm able to say, "Hey, can I use you as a referral?" And then they see this guy works for State Farm. He's a senior level manager at State Farm. That goes a long way with my resume. And being in a large company also goes a long way too. When you have a pretty good resume from a company that no one ever really heard of, it doesn't really go that far. But when someone sees just big name companies, it stands out, because everyone knows State Farm. Everyone knows SiriusXM. Those are big household names, I would say. So those things help me, but I would say just cultivating a relationship with like people, having that that contact in your back pocket, so to speak, definitely goes a long way. I have people right now in my circle, people who have moved on, that are VPs for large organizations, that are head of departments for large organizations, and they may have moved on for whatever reason, but because I've cultivated that relationship with them, they said, hey, if ever something goes wrong, if ever things don't work out where you are, and you found yourself down in your luck, you have my number. Call me and I'll find somewhere for you. Having that type of relationship is key. I do it for others. I don't have that much pull yet because I'm just an engineer. But when you start becoming a manager or a business leader and you start getting to the executive level, then you have more of a pull. So I'm cultivating that relationship, those relationships in different areas. And I'm also doing the same for people who are trying to break into the field and are at where I was. So
What advice would you give to someone who feels they're stuck in their IT role?
well, I would say they have to first take a step back, evaluate where you are right now and where you see yourself in the next, let's do a short-term goal, like the next 2 years, just 2 to 5 years, I would say, as a short-term goal. Where do you see yourself in the next 2 to 5 years? And then start to cultivate those relationships to get you there. It doesn't happen overnight. I would put time on people's calendars. When I was in the IT department and I was breaking into cyber, and even when I got into the cyber department and I wanted to move up, I can see myself being an engineer on a different team or doing a different function. There's going to be a leader on that team or manager or some type of senior level like engineer on that team. I would be almost borderline intrusive and say, hey, can I put some time on your calendar? Let's talk. I want to be where you are. How can you help me get there? Sometimes they may say yes, sometimes they may say no, but you have to ask. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Once you get that yes, make sure and come prepared. Have those questions. Hey, how did you get to this level? What did you study to get to this level? What are the different things you need as far as, some roles require you to have some form of certification or some sort of degree, whether it be if you're on the legal side or if you have a certain avenue that you want to pursue, maybe there's government contracts involved. You have to have something to show that, hey, I can do this outside of just saying I can do this. Because when you're on the legal side and you're dealing with compliance, and sometimes you have to go and testify in court, the defense will rip you apart saying, what makes you a professional? You don't have any kind of credential to say that you belong here. So those types of roles, I would say, require you to have some type of certification or some type of degree. But that's not the end all be all. If you see yourself somewhere 5 to 10 years, talk to the people, cultivate those relationships, and let them know that, hey, this is what I want to do, and take those steps, take their advice, and come up with a plan and just go after it.
Do you believe not having a degree or certification can limit your career progression?
It can go either way. Where I'm heading right now, I would say I've actually been studying for a certification through the SANS Institute, and I will eventually get the cert. Do I need it? I would think it definitely keeps me marketable, because there are a lot of people in the industry that do have it. Now, I've been hired before over people who do have it, but it does definitely have that edge that it gives you, and you tend to see that there's a skills gap sometimes with those who do not have it. So even though I do a lot of studying, self-studying is very important. Well, to me, I do a lot of studying. I'm always on my tablet just studying different things as pertains to my job. But sometimes I would say that piece of paper does help, and I will go forward and get that, because even though I don't need it to get into the field or to get promoted in the field, I believe at some point, especially when you become a subject matter expert in the field, it's almost like a requirement for you to have some sort of credential saying that, hey, I'm qualified to do this. Because when you're a subject matter expert, you should know everything there is to know about a particular department that you're in within cyber. So that comes with time. So I would say definitely, I would elaborate on that more. There are, I would say certain departments that require you to have that. If you're venturing down that route, that's fine. But if that's not the department for you, that's fine as well. I would say, as far as a degree goes, by me being in my career for as long as I've been already, going back to school is kind of redundant in a sense, because I've even been told by certain leaders in my field, they said, do not go back to school. You've been in the field for 5 years. So that substitute for a bachelor's degree. You would basically be going to school and paying a university to teach you something that you already know. And you learn so much more on the job than you do in a classroom because you have that knowledge and experience from actually doing the work and not just reading it in a book and doing some lab. Your lab is every day working on those computers. Your lab is every day stopping those attacks. And that has worked in my favor many times over, where I've been hired over people who have a master's degree in cybersecurity or have some sort of certification that speaks volumes. But I got hired. Why? Because I have that drive, that passion, that drive, and also the work ethic to back it up.
What ways do you help others get into this space?
Just being open and having a conversation. I keep my LinkedIn up to date, not to say, "Woo, look at me," but to let people know, "Hey, you can do this too." And when they reach out to me, I respond. I said, "Hey, how can I help you?" Make myself available. I'm part of different types of like interviews, whether it be internship interviews or mock interviews, or helping out anyone that I see that has that passion and that drive, and say, "Hey, I've done it, and you can do it too." So I'll definitely say that they need to, one, update their resume, make sure it's professional. I actually help with that as well. And you need to tailor your resume based on the job description. That job description part of a job post is very important. You need to just read through there, just pick out certain keywords and put that on your resume. Now, it's not saying that you're lying, so to speak, but you want to make sure you include those keywords because a lot of times resumes go through this algorithm or this filtering process where it's picking out like different keywords within the resume before a recruiter even looks at it. Because when a job goes live on LinkedIn or even on these different job sites, they allow you to see how many applicants are applying for the same job you are. Sometimes there are thousands of and what makes you stand out from the 1,001 other person that has applied for the same job? And one thing I would say is basically tailoring your resume professionally, making sure that you have those keywords, making sure that there's no typos. That is a very big factor that I've seen a lot of times. People get rejected or they're rejected, so they didn't even get a call because they have typos. That shows off the bat that you're not paying attention to detail. And being in cybersecurity, that's one thing you need to do is pay attention to detail. So, or just IT in general, because you can miss the smallest detail from a small configuration. You can be going through lines of code and there can be a small error somewhere, but if you're not paying attention to the details, you're going to miss that. So that's something that's very key, especially in cybersecurity, paying attention to details. So I would go through that process in helping them tailor their resume in a way that gets more clicks. I would help them on how to present themselves on an interview, how to dress for the occasion, how to speak for the occasion. Now, granted, I'm not saying to change how you speak, but when you're on an interview, don't speak to the interviewer like you're talking to your buddy or someone that you are close with. There's a certain level of respect because you want that person to take you seriously. You want that person to give you a chance, and you want that person, I would say, put yourself in their shoes. Why would they select you over someone else? What do you bring to the table outside of maybe not having a degree, maybe not having a certification? What do you bring to the table? Do you have that drive? One of the main questions I find that are asked on interviews is, what gets you going in the field? What gets you pumped? What gets you out of bed in the morning? They want to see if you're excited about the field or if you're just here for a paycheck. Because a lot of people are in the field for a paycheck. They know, hey, I can make 6 figures doing a SOC analyst job, but they don't really care about the field itself. And if they get in, it shows in their work ethic. It shows when they don't go that extra mile to make sure that they determine, hey, is this really a false positive, or you just haven't found the attacker in the system? Being able to do that, and just with having that mindset definitely goes a long way. So just helping them adopt that mindset, seeing actually who has the passion. Because to be honest with you, there are people who have come to me and I've had a conversation with them where very easily I can see this person's in it for the money. Because I would ask by certain questions. And you could see the people who are excited. You could see the people who are like, man, I just want to get into the field. I want to do this. I want to do that. And you just can't get them to shut up, for lack of a better term. And those are the people that I want to help. When you're speaking with someone and they're like, yeah, I saw it when I was in college and I changed my major, and yeah, I'm about to graduate, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it. That person is more in it for the money. And I'm not trying to prejudge someone, but I've seen it time and time again when I conduct interviews or I do mock interviews or actual interviews for positions in different companies. You see those who may have not taken it seriously, and maybe they were the best candidate that had applied for the job and they got it, and then they came into the industry, and then they're like, man, I hate this, because they were in it for the money. So I would say just having that passion and that drive, that goes a long way. And those are the people that I put at the top of my list as far as those who I want to help. I send them things that I have, because I've gone through different CompTIA stuff. I've gone through Security Plus studying. So I have all that material. I've been privileged to be part of a large organization where I get a lot of things for free. Whereas small organizations would maybe have you pay to get certain certifications or whatnot, whereas the company would pay for it for me. So I have the material. So I said, hey, I have the material. If you want it, I can give it to you. But I reserve that for people who are serious. And you can very easily see that from those who you speak with on different calls. I give people that initial chance. And then when I see that they're serious, I said, oh, now we can move forward. So that's how I would facilitate, and that's how I would help those people who don't have that degree, don't have nothing that really says, hey, this helps me stand out. I help them in those areas where, hey, show that ambition if you have it. Show that drive. Make your resume the way it needs to be. I can help you with a professional cover letter, because sometimes certain jobs require it. They say, hey, they would actually only pull those applications of people who actually have cover letters. So those things will definitely help you stand out.
What are the perks of working in the cybersecurity industry?
For myself, the perks I have is I get to set my own schedule. I work from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. That works for me because, well, I'm an early riser. I like to wake up early. So if I can start work earlier, great. But if at 2, I still have the day to do things with my wife and my kids, just like soccer practice or recitals, whatever, I'm able to be there for them. The flexibility, of course, it goes without saying that I make a 6-figure salary. So that's definitely good. My wife and kids are not complaining. Having the ability to be remote too. Just a lot of companies, they're seeing more and more that, hey, we don't have to spend just like money having facilities to house employees. The ones that can work remotely, let them work remotely. Now, of course, there are companies that are doing their thing, but most companies, I would say, are seeing that, and they're starting to venture down that route. So being able to work like remotely. I have the ability to work in almost any state or any country that's an ally to the US because of the size of my company. Having that flexibility is like great. Having a salary too. I'm not an hourly employee. That's also really great. When you're hourly, you have to make sure in your time, you have to make sure that you over time if you want it and stuff like that. But in your salary, it's pretty much set. So sometimes a full week can go by and work 40 hours a week. Some weeks I may work 30 hours a week because maybe I spend the other 10 hours doing training or doing things for work, but not really work related, or per my job description, I would say. I get paid the same. So having that is definitely good as well. So I would say those are definitely like the perks. And from just being in the field, you get to see so much. You get to be a part of so much, especially for a large organization, because most hackers or threat actors, as they would say, won't go after the small company that no one ever heard of. They will go after the big companies. So we see things that it's crazy. The things that we see. Can't go into too much detail, but we get to see some good stuff. And just that exhilarating feeling of chasing a threat actor or figuring out, hey, what is this malware doing? How do I figure out what it's doing? What type of intrusion is this? Or how do I build the TTPs around this type of threat actor? Being able to do that for a large organization that's spanning multiple time zones, exhilarating. At some point in your career, you realize that you're not just protecting systems, but you're protecting society. Because if the company I work for were to fail, it would impact a lot of people. It would impact the media industry. It would theme parks, TV shows that people love and depend on and binge watch. It's like so much. So at some point, man, I get to do this. I get to be part of Super Bowl or elections or Olympics, or you get to do all these different things. And it's like, man, it's really cool. So
thank you for watching. I really hope you were able to extract some value from that. And if you were, kindly like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and even share it with somebody else who's looking to break into the cybersecurity industry. I also have some suggestions here for videos that I think you might find enjoyable. Hope to see you on the other side.